Hey everybody, it's Callie, and today I want to talk about the ups and downs of making and keeping friends when you have OCD. I don't think it's really a secret that friendships take a lot of work, especially as an adult. I think making friends seemed a lot easier when I was in school, but as I got older, I realized how many of those friendships were actually born out of proximity because I was seeing the same people 5 times a week for 7 hours a day or whatever it was. But the truth is, after I left school, after I graduated and went on to the next thing, I lost contact pretty quickly with the majority of most of those people. And then, the ones that I kept in contact with, some more of those we fell off the wagon as the years passed. And now I just have a very select few people that I have decided I want in my life forever. So those are the people that have stuck around. So what's the upside to having old friends like that have really been around for a long time? They already know a lot about you. So it was really easy for me personally. I know it's not easy for everybody, but it was really easy for me to open up to those old friends about my OCD because they already knew so much about me, they knew about my past, and I was pretty confident that this wouldn't really change our relationship in a negative way. It would kind of just, if anything, make us closer, and if I could help them understand how to better help me, we were just making our relationship stronger. And that was all well and good in the beginning. But I think what did change for me was not necessarily the relationships, but how my OCD made me feel about them. So as I kind of started to fall deeper into this pit that OCD was throwing me down, I started to avoid those people because I felt like it was better for everybody if I started to do that. I also didn't like that I was bombarded with harm thoughts every time I was around my friends and family. So I started to avoid them because it felt good at the time. And that was really because I was engaging in a compulsion. That was why it felt good. But in doing that, I made things worse for myself because when I started to try to return to my quote normal, it was a lot harder. And eventually that all worked out and that was fine for old friends. But what about new friends? What about people that don't know you that well, that haven't been there, that don't really have that background knowledge of what you're like as a person? So they don't really know that much about you, but you also don't know that much about them. You don't know how they're going to react if and when they find out what you're going through. And I think a big part of this is something that I think all of us with OCD struggle with. It's accepting risk and uncertainty. The truth is we don't know how people are going to react. We don't know how things are going to go if we put ourselves out there and make ourselves a little bit vulnerable in efforts to make a solid friendship. And a lot of times it doesn't turn into a solid friendship. It might just be an acquaintance. It might be somebody that you find you don't really jive with, and that's okay. But the thing that I want to ask you about that is, how is that different from anyone who doesn't have OCD trying to make new friends? The truth is, it's really not that different at all. And first of all, I want to point out that everybody is going through something. Everybody has some kind of struggle. For some people, it might be mental health issues. For other people, it might be problems with their physical health. Some people have family trouble or whatever it is. Nobody is perfect, and it's a lot harder to see that, I think, when you're first meeting somebody and you're both kind of putting your best foot forward. It's a lot easier to, at that point, think, oh my God, this person maybe won't understand what I'm going through. They seem like they have it all together. They seem like they have the perfect life. Really, that's not true for anybody. Everybody's got something that they're working on, that they're working through. So that's important to keep in mind as you go, and those things kind of start to show themselves as you become more comfortable with one another. I don't think too many people kind of go into a new friendship or any kind of relationship laying all their problems out right in the beginning, right? It's too much. Like, the trauma dumping is a lot and it turns a lot of people off, which is all well and good. But as people spend more time together and as they become more comfortable with one another, they start to leave little breadcrumbs for the things that are actually happening in their life outside the context of what you know about them. So other parts of their life kind of come together and build this picture right? So you start to see the picture forming, and they'll start to see your picture forming as you're leaving these little breadcrumbs. And I think the important thing with any kind of relationship, whether you have OCD, whether you don't, whether you have something else going on, is to pick up on all of these breadcrumbs and kind of let them decide how the friendship is going to form from there. Another important thing about that is finding people who are compassionate and empathetic when they learn about what your little breadcrumbs are. And when you start to learn what theirs are, that you're showing them that same compassion and empathy. Because if they're not, one, why would you want to be friends with somebody like that anyway if they're not a compassionate and empathetic person? Then they're, probably have some other things and they're not ready to deal with whatever's going on with you as well. But then two, you want somebody who is understanding and capable of at least trying to put themselves into your position and trying to understand what you're going through, because ultimately you're not looking for acquaintances. You're not looking for people that are just fair weather friends. You want somebody that if push comes to shove, they're gonna help you weather the storm. If you're starting to feel like your circle of friends has gotten really, really small and you need to reach out, there are plenty of ways to do that. I mean, if you're in school, that's a perfect way, or you can try through work. But there are so many other things with the internet right at our fingertips. We have the world as our oyster, right? So I started joining local groups that kind of matched my interests. So I'm in like local gardening groups, I'm in like thrifting and vintage things and decor groups and all the stuff that I find interesting and fun. I want to find like-minded people because it's easier, obviously, when you're talking to somebody, when you're trying to find common ground, if you're going into it knowing you already have something in common. You already have this thing that you care about, that you like, that you're interested in. So it's easier to kind of connect immediately in that way. You find somebody who is kind of already matching you in that headspace. If you feel like your OCD is really impeding you from putting yourself out there and maybe making yourself a little bit vulnerable and trying to work on forming relationships and finding friends, it might also be time to talk to a professional that knows not only about just the treatment of OCD, but also understands all the different facets of what it's like living with OCD. You want somebody who understands not only the obsessions and the compulsions when it comes to OCD, but why you might have a hard time putting yourself out there, or why you might view yourself a certain way because of your OCD. And if that's the case, then the specialists at NOCD are here to help. Not only can they help with ERP, or exposure and response prevention therapy, which is of course the way that we work through our obsessions and compulsions and break free of our OCD, but they also understand what it's like living day to day with OCD and why that might affect you in the ways that it does. So if you're ready to start trying to navigate those waters, again, you don't have to do it alone. You can go to NOCD.com or treatmyocd.com today, and you can start talking to somebody who understands what it's really like having OCD. And on that note, I'm gonna get going, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.